All right, so here we are again, ready to
Here we are,
discuss the
episode
insanities
three.
of the world, discuss the absolute insanities of the world.
Yeah, it's been a crazy few days, and the most insane thing I think is the image that President Trump posted of himself,
Oh, the
trying to pose as Jesus Christ.
of him as a doctor, you mean healing
Yeah,
the sick? Yeah.
right. Well, oh yeah, is he a doctor? Right. There's actually I've seen some funny memes from doctors saying like, "This is how I dress to work. I have these red robes and all of this," and then, but I mean, it's not really shocking that Trump would do this. I wouldn't put it past him. I guess the question is not that he did it, right? Because he's done so many outrageous things. He posted as the Pope in the past. He just, as we discussed in the last episode, he threatened to wipe out an entire civilization. I guess the more interesting point, or the more noteworthy point, is that he was stupid enough, or I mean, what was going on in his mind that he thought that that was a good idea politically, or to post that.
I can't even imagine. And the other thing too is a lot of like things similar to this have happened in the past, right? And usually he'll be like, "Oh, it was a staffer." I don't know. Somebody posted it. I don't know what they were doing. It was a mistake. But he's admitted that it was him. He was like, "Yeah, no, it was me. I was the doctor." Like, why even do that? It just, none of it makes any sense. But yeah, I agree.
I guess.
Like, you're he keeps pushing the envelope of what his Christian base will accept, and for some reason there seems to be no boundary to that. Like, I feel like I would have been out. What was it, like 8 years ago when he started selling Trump Bibles? I mean, I feel like even that should be considered blasphemous, at least to some extent. But this is like a whole other level.
Yeah, I mean it is, but why? The question is why, but maybe it has something to do with the fact that he's not up for re-election. He doesn't have to worry about his base anymore. I mean, at his core, at who he is, all of his actions show that it's all about him, right? So, if assuming that premise that it's all about him, he doesn't care what happens to the Republican Party after he's gone. Do you think that's a fair assertion?
I think that probably is a very fair assertion. My only thing with that would be like, wouldn't he still be concerned about midterms though? Because if the Senate and the House completely swap, he's not going to be able to push his agendas forward the way he is right now.
Yeah, maybe that is why he took it down. That's pretty rare that he actually takes anything down in the first place.
But I mean, I do think you're right, though. I think that what is it? The Trump family has been overall, and not just him personally, but like the family has been enriched by something like $4 billion since he became president the second time. That's insanity. Like, it's actually crazy.
That is insane. I mean, and the question is also, like, what has the response been to that? I mean, I think it blew up. It's been blowing up on social media. That particular image, and even more so his supposed explanation as to why he intended to post it as the first place. So that does bring us to another JD Vance, right? So I don't know if you saw what his response was to that image being posted. So he said that it was intended as just a joke, and oh well, maybe he didn't realize that it didn't sit well with people. But is there in any world like that could be considered like a joke that would make somebody laugh?
Well, so my opinion is that's not even the right question to be asking. To me, the right question would be before that, which is, should the president of the United States be making AI jokes on social media? Like, I feel like the position of the president is for all intents and purposes, like obviously there's supposed to be checks and balances and so on, but for all intents and purposes, the president of the United States is the most powerful man in the world, effectively. I don't really think it's appropriate for him to be doing things like that. And like that kind of goes back to like the thing about eradicating Iran. Like, you could sit there and say it's hyperbolic speech. Well, why is the president speaking hyperbolically? He's the president of the United States. what he says should mean something. And then the people that are like, oh, well, the pundits, this person on CNN says that. That's a person on CNN. I don't care. This is the president of the United States. They're not the same. They're not even remotely similar. It's a completely different stratosphere. Like, he shouldn't be posting AI memes on Twitter or at whatever, Free Truth Social, whatever it was. He shouldn't be doing that at all. That's my opinion. Never mind what he posted.
I agree, but is there any way to change that with reform or something? I mean, I don't. Because, I mean, given the First Amendment in the United States is pretty strong, I mean, I guess we could put guardrails on the executive branch. But, I mean, I feel like Trump is unique. Even if there was another president in the future that had authoritarian tendencies, I don't look what other authoritarian in the world posts like so publicly, so immaturely, so recklessly, and without regard to anyone.
Well, you said it the best.
Right?
It's immature. It's just like a child, and I think that the sad thing is that speaks about us. I mean, like, what does it say that the citizens of the United States elected this person to be their leader?
Well, I can tell you, I mean, because I've heard it from people that I know, but also just I know I've seen conservative people that still support Trump. They'll say, well, the Democrats are worse. What happened under Biden, etc. They'll cite to some example where, Joe Biden did, he pardoned his son or some kind of wrongdoing or corrupt allegation against somebody else. They'll deflect and they won't look at it directly. It's kind of what we were discussing when we were texting today. Like, do people actually care about like integrity or like basic values, or is it just like we want to get XYZ goal achieved and it doesn't matter even if we accept somebody that's openly blasphemous against the Christian religion? We'll take it, We'll accept murder. We'll accept the destruction of the rule of law, and what else? I mean, it goes across the board, right? So there's so many people that have things against Trump, but they still support him.
Well, the part that gets me is like trying to have, like, I understand the argument. Like, if you want to say, hey, I didn't like Joe Biden, okay. I feel like Joe Biden was a very basic president. I don't think he did anything that was amazing, but he didn't destroy anything really either. He was just a president. He
fell asleep.
Yeah. He was a president. He was okay, whatever. He existed and then he was gone. That was it. And I mean, his administration, if you think about it, they pulled us out of whatever recession or associated economic issues we had following COVID. It was really him and his administration that did that. So it wasn't all bad. It was at least decent, right? Trump has come in, and what about, unless you were already part of like the 1%, whose life is better now than it was a year and a half ago? I can't think of anybody.
It's not. I mean, I think one of the things that is a huge kind of weapon that the Trump administration has exploited very successfully is immigration. It kind of allows them to hide behind everything else. So for example, the Big Beautiful Bill, right? That cut, I don't know the details. I know it did a lot of cuts to benefits for American citizens, Medicaid, food stamps, health insurance in general. I think health insurance premiums have gone up. And there's like people that need assistance, like food assistance, they're out of luck. And then taxes on the rich went down. And just like he's with the tariffs, like the way that he goes about things, it's like it's good that we can talk about it because it's such a wide array, such a universe of things. Like, it's hard. You can't take everything in at the same time. You forget something else. So if you put everything together and say, is it better for Americans, average Americans? Well, we can say right now, definitely that with the gas prices, no. And I mean, what is worse now under the first 2 years of Trump?
Basically everything. I mean, I can't think of anything that's better. I'm serious. I mean, he said, even we're now currently at war. Gas is through the roof. The prices of everything has gone up. Like everything is more expensive, even though it went down initially, I guess, when he first took over, but it's all up now. Nothing is cheap anymore. It's exactly the way it was before. Like you mentioned, taxes are higher. The K curve in the country is getting exponential. Like it's much worse than it was before, meaning, the richer are getting more rich and everybody else is getting more poor. Like there's no in between. And it's funny that you mentioned like the help programs, and I love like having that conversation with people because I feel like so many people don't understand. Like you can sit there and say, oh well, the welfare state, blah 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 blah. Okay, but here's the reality: welfare, it's not like the stuff that people buy on welfare just magically appears in their home, right? They get money from the government, which you could say maybe if you want to have an argument that they don't deserve it, I guess that's fine. I don't agree necessarily, but whatever. But then they go to a store and they purchase things with that money. So that money goes into the economy, which is good for everybody. If you suddenly have these people, same thing with illegal immigrants. Like people love to make this, oh, they're taking, but they don't put anything in. Sure, they do. They buy food. They have a place to live. They're buying clothes. Whatever they're doing, they're spending money. That money is going into the economy. That's good. That's keeping small businesses alive, or at least helping to. So to just try to make it out like all of these things are just horrific, and if everybody's life would be better if they were gone, is just an absolutely ridiculous argument. I think it's fair to say that things need to be adjusted, maybe. Okay, sure, I can hear that argument, but I don't know. I just, and then the other thing too, going back to the welfare and cutting welfare programs, like somebody said to me one day, and I never really thought about this before, but it was like we were having a conversation, and the basic idea was, let's say you have somebody who they grew up, they never worked a day in their life. They're lazy as hell and they cheat the system, right? And they get welfare that you feel like they don't deserve. Well, what did they do to pay into it? Well, you know what? Maybe they didn't do anything to pay into it, but their parents lived a whole life and they worked here and they paid their taxes. Their grandparents paid their taxes and so on and so forth. So we're the richest country in the world. Why couldn't we theoretically support somebody who is lazy if their entire family and everybody around them works and pays taxes? Isn't that the whole point of the social support system?
Yeah, and I think it's not like I feel like most people that are on welfare are probably not on it because they're lazy.
Yes,
There's probably
obvious. But I'm just saying, I'm giving extreme examples.
Yeah,
but yes,
worst example. But even the worst example, we're not talking like people are getting rich off of it. It's like a bare stipend to survive.
Yes.
And then, even if somebody's not on welfare, a lot of people rely on Obamacare, the health marketplace. If you're making, let's just say I'm self-insured, I pay my own insurance, it's $1,000 a month, right? And if you look at somebody that's making only, like on Long Island, for example, who's making $50,000, and $1,000 a month premium, that cuts into your budget.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like the cost of living. Let's talk about. I mean, look, we're both on Long Island, right? It's changed radically here. The pricing, because I remember back in 2012, 2013, purchased a home, like a nice new home, brand new home, like over 2,000 square feet in Huntington, for under $500,000. That same house now is probably close to $1 million, not $800,000, $900,000.
Yep.
So most people, I mean, I don't even know how. There's a huge division of wealth, or is it separation of wealth in Long Island? Like anybody making under you have to make well over $200,000 to even start to think that you could afford to buy and qualify for your own home on Long Island. That's like huge, high salary. So those are the kind of issues I think that need to be addressed, and we're going in the opposite direction. I mean, I thought Trump was supposed to bring that back to us, but it's just like a big fraud, no?
I think so. And that's something that I pointed out to anybody that asked me. way back in the day. Like I even remember the first time when he was talking about Obamacare, and he would do this all the time. He'd be like, "Oh well, we're gonna have this healthcare system, and it's gonna be the best. There's gonna be nothing like it. Nobody's ever seen anything like it." But if you actually asked him, or not me personally, but if anybody ever asked him to elaborate on like what his plan actually was, he had no answer because he didn't actually have a plan. And like this is a thing that always frustrates me about him is he just says things and he promises all these this amazing stuff, but there's never actually any plan behind it. There's never any actual meaning behind it. And then he just does whatever. And like you can't really effectively run anything that way. It's very easy to say, "Hey, I care about the poor people and we're going to fix the economy so everybody's rich." Well, I mean, I guess in a way he did good stuff for the economy, right? The stocks are up again today, even despite the war, right? And whatever, and like the stock market keeps going up, which is great, but that's not actually representative of your economy. That's representative
That's representative of the wealthy.
Right, exactly. It's not representative of everybody. So it's like I don't know. But yeah,
I mean, he's also gone through. There's been crashes in the market too, like with the tariffs, which is, I think the tariffs are similar to the way that he went about announcing and implementing tariffs. Appears very similar to how he's going about carrying out the Iran war. It's just impulsive, reckless, without any real care for the consequences to anyone else. It's just about his agenda. For example, I don't know if we want to shift to, because there's Iran with the whole issue with the Jesus image and everything, all that came out of Iran. And there's been a lot of responses from people other than Trump that are basically, they're enabling him. They're defending him. And I think I know why, but look at Mike Johnson, for example, right? Remember, there's been a spat between Pope Leo and Trump, well, mostly on the part of Trump. Pope Leo basically said, he said a couple of things, but one of them was that God doesn't answer the prayers of people that are going to war.
Right.
Or a war of choice, I think. And the other thing was that in the Bible, there was some quote specifically that blessed are the peacemakers, and that basically the Bible does not authorize or condone war, right? So Mike Johnson, he, in response to the Pope, and he's a slick character, I'll give him that. I don't know if you were able to see that. Did you see what he said?
No. Mike Johnson? No, I didn't.
Let me see. Let's pull it up. Yes. I was a little taken aback, frankly, by something that the Pope had said several days back. And he referenced specifically that God does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war, but rejects them. Johnson cited the just war doctrine, where there's war can be justified. Let's check that out real quick. What is the just war doctrine in the Bible?
I don't remember learning about that.
Augustine and Aquinas. It can be morally justified to prevent a greater evil, like defense, last resort, proportionality. And so the way that if I was just a regular person who had no previous opinion on anything, and I heard Mike Johnson's response, he sounds persuasive. He sounds convincing. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, citing to the Bible. And frankly, I mean, I'm not given that I'm not an expert on Iran, I struggle with their defenses. Like there's like a blending of the line. It's kind of, they take something that's clearly illegitimate and then they blend it with some facts, and then all of a sudden anything's justified. So, for example, I've heard that Iran is the biggest sponsor of terrorism, and now that they have less power, they have less weapons, that the millions of people's lives, or hundreds of thousands of people's lives can be saved or will be saved. That's like the reverse. They turn it on its head. So what's your response to that? In your opinion, I know, yeah, I think your opinion would carry more weight given your background. What do you think about those defenses? Are they persuasive?
I think they would be more persuasive if the Trump administration didn't undercut itself. Like, here's the way I look at it. If you want to have that viewpoint where America is the world police and we need to protect the downtrodden everywhere, I think that's fine. But then why are we not doing anything in North Korea? Why are we not doing anything in Ukraine? Why are we not, there's tons of places where people are experiencing essentially the same thing. And in the case of Ukraine, they are actively being killed currently. And then how about Palestine? The Palestinians, regardless of what you think about, Hamas and whatever, obviously they're terrorist groups, they're terrible, but the people of Palestine are suffering greatly under Israeli aggression, Israeli government aggression. But you don't care about any of these people. But for some reason, the evil in Iran is so horrific that you have to call down Catholic just war theories to eliminate it. I don't understand that. I really don't. If Trump was more harsh in Ukraine, because that's the thing, like, and I think I said this the other day, in the other one, like our first episode maybe, where I was like, if Trump's view, or at first Trump's viewpoint with Russia, where he was kind of like, hey, we got to cut this out. I don't want to involve the United States, or at least that's where it seemed like he was. I was kind of behind that. I was like, all right, I don't really want to go to war. Okay, I see what he's doing. But now that's basically all just garbage. He doesn't care. It's just that he doesn't want conflict with Putin for some reason. Because the reality is, he absolutely could have thrown U.S. weight behind this and said, you need to get out, or we're going to have serious problems, Yeah, but he didn't.
No, and he humiliated the president of Ukraine. I mean, the good example of how if that was your premise, that you're the world police, you want to do good things in the world. You look at Venezuela, like, yeah, Nicolas Maduro was a dictator. He imprisoned his political. He helped destroy Venezuela's economy. He put political opposition in jail, but they kicked him out, and they left everyone in place. So all his deputies who've committed countless human rights violations, horrible people, criminals, murderers, they get to continue to have power and act with impunity as long as they comply with the requests of the Trump administration. So you see a pattern there.
Absolutely.
It's about bending the knee. It's about conquering who is conquerable, right? So Venezuela is kind of, it was almost like an event. It's like, let's try this out. And they had no intention to, I think that was the plan all along, was just leave the government in place because they didn't want to go. What else were they going to do? I mean, anything else would require planning and huge expenditure of resources, like toppling the government. But why Iran? Why Venezuela? And not Russia? I mean, I think It's pretty clear because they were possible, because they were achievable. Like you can't really recklessly start. I mean, you could, but that's a scary thought, right? Because Russia has nuclear weapons, so it doesn't matter that we outmatch them in other metrics. But if we went down that road, it's not something you can just take. You don't have such. It's almost like Trump is the kind of person that only wants to pick wars with people that he is far superior to. Right. It's almost like a game. I feel like I wouldn't say it's intentional because there's no. With Venezuela, what's the strategic gain? I mean, not much.
Well, my original thought was that it was to gain control over oil exports, but I don't know. That seems to not have gone anywhere.
Said, no, we don't want it.
Yeah,
the oil companies they gave up on it.
So I don't know. I have no idea.
And then you look at Iran, like there's been no planning on it. Like they don't. What now? There's a block. What was the latest news?
The blockade was the last I heard.
There was a blockade, like right after the negotiation talks. So it's pretty scary. I mean, that it could lead to something. What if Vladimir Putin really defends Trump's ego?
I don't know. I really don't know. It's the whole thing is just, but like back to the original point, real quick, is just that's my like if for them to take that stance, right. It's very difficult when you have all these other situations. You can't have it both ways. You can't be like, well, we're protecting them and but we're not going to do that with other people. In fact, the Russians that invaded Ukraine, we're actually going to antagonize Ukraine about it. Like it's your fault, and you are the and like you brought up the thing with Zelensky. I remember watching that and just being so aggravated because maybe it's something that he shouldn't have said publicly. If you want to be like, hey, they shouldn't have brought that up, okay, fine, maybe. But Zelensky's point was perfectly reasonable. I mean, he was basically just saying, well, you're saying that we have to give up some land, and then in exchange, Russia promises not to attack us. But they've promised not to attack us like 50 times already, and they've broken it every time. So what is the value in that? Is there any kind of a guarantee that they won't break it? And like that was essentially what made Trump just attempts to humiliate him in public. And it's just like
he was ambushed. That was really ugly. But you got to think, from as ugly as it was, from someone like Zelensky's standpoint, like what does he doesn't care about being humiliated. He only cares insofar as it affects his ability to obtain military aid and other aid that's necessary to defend the war. Like, I mean, from his, if I was trying to put myself in his shoes, where I'm like under threat daily of literally being assassinated by Russia, and people thought he was going to be assassinated. I remember when the war first started, I thought that Russia was going to steamroll them, but they got pushed back hard. They still can't make much progress at all.
Nope.
And from his perspective, putting myself in his shoes, Zelensky's shoes, is like, who are you, like JD Vance and Donald Trump, to talk to me like that? Like, I mean, I don't know if JD Vance, is he a veteran?
I don't know. I don't think so. I can't imagine that he is.
Yeah, I don't think so. He doesn't seem like it would be. Is JD Vance a veteran?
Yeah, let me see.
Oh, he is. He was in the Marine Corps
for 4 years. 2nd Marine Air Wing.
Though, I think being deployed in it, no, with all due respect,
I'm curious about his service.
I don't think serving in Iraq is comparable really to something like Ukraine. It's just like, I mean, it's an active zone, right?
But he was a military journalist.
The fuck is that?
So he wrote for some kind of in military like paper or radio.
That's a position.
During his 4 years of service, he was deployed to Iraq in 2005 for 6 months in a non-combat role, writing articles and taking photographs. So there you go. So yeah, so he was not. Any kind of engagement.
One of the most non-military military positions I've heard. I mean, I know there's a gamut of positions that are non-combat, but I feel like most require, especially if you're in a place like Iraq, would expose one to more risk. I wonder if that was by choice or it had to be his choice. Would it be? I mean, do you get to choose, or you get to angle towards what you want, right?
It depends. So if you're enlisted, you get to choose your job, sort of, to within an extent. So you have to take it's a test. It's called the ASVAB test, and it's like it's not really an IQ test, but it's like there's just all different elements you have to answer questions for, and then you get scored in various things, and that determines what jobs you can take. So if you score really high, you can pretty much take whatever you want. If you score really low, you're going to be an infantryman, and that's kind of just how it goes. But then you can choose. If you're an officer, however, like so let's say you go to the military academy, like if you go to Annapolis or West Point or whatever, you don't get to choose. You just get assigned. They tell you after you graduate, hey, you're going to this unit, you're going to be an officer of this thing, and that's it. So a little bit different, but he was enlisted, so he chose to be a journalist.
Yeah.
But
It's so that where do you think Iran's going to end?
I don't know. So like the weird thing is like it's so hard. I feel like it's so hard to get actual information, right? Because the administration keeps saying that we won, we achieved all of our objectives, whatever that is. I don't even know what our objectives were, to be honest. I mean, maybe we did. Maybe our objective was to start a war. That was the objective. In which case, hey, we did. We succeeded. But it's like they're saying that, right? They killed all the members of the government are dead, but the government is still running. So somebody took over. And they're still doing the same thing. There's still resistance. So clearly, even though their military is essentially eliminated, there's still people that are fighting, that are willing to fight. So I don't know. I feel like it's very difficult to get real,
especially
accurate
since,
information.
Even before the war, like I saw tons of articles citing to Iran killing something like tens of thousands of its own people in popular unrest, but like really, how do we even know that the access to Iran is severely restricted, and we can't trust? I certainly don't trust the United States government, especially given their subsequent actions, and especially given their record on human. They don't care about human rights. No. I'll give you an example, a real world example, because as an immigration lawyer, I have, for asylum cases, I often have to use the U.S. State Department human rights reports. There's one published every year on every country, from every country, right? And the most recent ones published in 2025 for 2024, they just gutted them. Like they eliminated everything about persecution or violations of the rights of LGBT individuals. For some countries that are more friendly, for example, El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, if you compare the 2023 and the 2024 reports, it's like the 2023 report says serious human rights violations include extrajudicial killing, the suspension of the constitution in El Salvador, etc., like serious issues in human rights. All of a sudden, just 1 year later, effectively the entire report it's whitewashed. Everything's eliminated. There's nothing that says there's no significant. It effectively says there's no human rights issues anymore.
Yeah, which is obviously
it's almost, that's part of the issue with this talking or trying to get your head around this government, is that there's so much out there that supports a central theory, is that this is a person at its core. All the evidence points to this is somebody that wants to be a dictator. They want to do what they want to do because what they want to do, they want to enrich themselves and exercise their power and make people bend to their knee. And everything in Iran points to that. Like they say, oh, I think Mike Johnson or whatever, they're all these defenders of Trump. Oh, well, Iran was a horrible government. The Ayatollah was evil. Yes, he was. From the evidence that I've seen, he definitely was. And I don't doubt that. There's no presumption of innocence. I mean, but what this government's saying, like, they don't care that he killed all his own people. They don't care about Russia killing Ukrainians.
Nope.
They don't care about Russia. They don't care about anything. Like, it's all bullshit. And why do people buy that? Like, so take away that you got rid of the Iranians violated human rights, that they're bad government, that they're bad people. Then switch to what's the actual bones of it. What is there to gain from from eliminating Iran? I mean, the only legitimate argument, I think, maybe Israel would have more of a domestic justification to eliminate, specifically with respect to Iran. Why? Because Israel's within reach of Iran's traditional ballistic missiles. And I could see how Israel thinks that Iran is an existential threat to themselves, right? Because of the proximity and geography. But from looking at Israel's treatment of Iran, I think can't be looked at in a vacuum. You have to look at how Israel has dealt with its neighbors in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and also in Lebanon, and also in Syria. Basically, the record of evidence shows that the government of Israel is willing to kill tens of thousands of children, starve children. Doesn't matter, like, the brutality, as long as it eliminates what they perceive as a threat to their people, to the Israeli people.
Yeah,
Like,
I completely agree. I do. I agree 100%. And I think to a certain extent, I don't want to say they're justified. That's not what I mean. But I can understand their perspective, right? Like, I think it's wrong, but they feel threatened. They feel like they need to do this. My major issue with it is, why do we have to constantly help them? Like, if you want to wage your war, what does that have to do with me? And I think that's the thing that bothers me with this, is like, on top of the fact that I already disagree, like, I disagree with what they're doing in Palestine. I disagree with what they're doing in Lebanon. I'm not for terrorist organizations. I don't like Hamas. I don't like Hezbollah. I don't like any of these groups. But that doesn't really seem to be the only focus of the Israeli government. They seem to not really care, because their viewpoint seems to be, I'm not saying it is, but at least Netanyahu's viewpoint seems to be that they're kind of all terrorists, like, that's kind of the way that they're conducting things.
I mean, Gaza, definitely, that's what they see, are potential future terrorists.
Right, exactly. And like, they, was it Hegseth, right? Who said it was Rubio, sorry, who said with Iran, when he was explaining it, he said it himself. We went to war, we struck Iran because we knew that Israel was going to strike Iran, and then we thought Iran would retaliate against us. What kind of a justification is that?
And I think it's directly rebutted by, look at what happened in the operation in 2025 to bomb the nuclear facilities with bunker busters. The United States did attack Iran in 2025 with Israel,
mm-hmm.
and there was retaliation against the United States and against Israel. But I think the retaliation against Israel was very different from Iran's response to the United States. Iran did launch some missiles at a U.S. military base, but the reports were that Iran gave advance notice to the United States, kind of like, we're just doing this to save face with our own people, that we're not just taking it. But we want you to know that we're at 10:30 at night, we're going to, or what is it, 22:30?
Yeah.
We're going to send some missiles over to this base. So get your Patriot missile silos ready. And lo and behold, they were all struck down. This time around, that was quite different. I mean, they've done quite a bit of damage to our military and to our service members. What was it, 13 or more killed and countless injured?
Yeah, something like that.
And
13.
I think one of the biggest financial losses, they took out that huge plane, the C. It was like a $700 million plane.
I didn't even see that. I didn't see that at all.
It's like it was one of the. Let me check it out. Let's check it out.
Was it a gunship? The Spectre?
No, it was one of 2 or 3 that we have. Surveillance. Yeah, it was a U.S. Air Force E-3 Sentry aircraft.
Sentry. Hold on.
See, how many are there?
Oh, it's a surveillance craft. Okay. That explains why it's so expensive. It actually explains a lot.
Something like 700 million. How many are there?
It's probably not too many of them, but I don't actually know. Yeah, these things are like those kinds of aircraft. They're just all electronics and stuff inside, so they're massively expensive.
They're like the AWACS, right?
Yeah. Well, let me see. It's got to say how many we have somewhere.
Total number built were 68. I don't know how many are in service though. okay,
Yeah, no,
that
I didn't
includes
even hear. Wait,
other.
did they shoot it down or they damaged it on a runway or something? I didn't hear about
They
this at all.
They totally destroyed it with a drone.
Oh, well, a drone
So
probably cost like, it was like $40 at Target for that.
I mean, whatever. Even if it was like 50,000 versus 700 million, and so why? What that begs the question, right? So what about Israel, right? So you think? I mean, to me, it seems like if they were unbound by the geographical restraints of using a nuclear weapon, they would love to see all of their neighbors or almost all their neighbors just totally wiped out. That would make them safe, no?
I think
if they just killed everyone.
I think Netanyahu would certainly be willing to do that. Now, I don't know that he would. Like, let's take this hypothetical fantasy world. I think he would want to do that. Would he? I don't know. Because I think that even he is smart enough to know that if he were to do that, the backlash would be immense. Like it wouldn't. I don't think that he would expect even the United States to continue supporting him at that point. So I don't know that he would do that. I think he's smarter than that, but I would believe that he would want to do that. I don't think that.
No, I'm saying wanting. I don't think that for practical reasons, especially not even just for the morality, the backlash, but they're right there. So I don't. You drop a nuclear weapon that's against your neighbor. There's going to be fallout. No.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's no way. But if you're asking me, like, do I believe that Benjamin Netanyahu would eliminate all of the other people there if he could? Yeah, I think he would. Yeah. And now, like, I want to be clear again. I don't think that the Israeli people believe this way, but I do think that Benjamin Netanyahu specifically does. I think he's nuts.
And look how we just talked about Trump, right? What's stopping him from doing? What happens after the midterms? What if he does lose big time? It doesn't mean he's going to act more reasonably. It might go the other way. He might feel the squeeze and act out even more recklessly. I mean, that's January 6th was like the culmination. People forget about that day. That was a crazy day.
Yeah, it was bad.
And when he's desperate, he could go. Maybe that'll bring this to a head, because I'd rather get resolved more quickly than later. Like, let the guy do something reckless. I mean, at the end of the day, I'd love for the system to be tested severely and for it to shoot him down, because if he continues to like fly right under the sun, destroying everything in his path, but like just staying below the surface, keeping things together. I mean, the damage, it'd almost be worse if he continues out his terms. This is just the second year.
Yeah, that's wild. It feels like it's been an eternity, honestly. Like it
does. And the whole cast, there's nobody, like, there are no adults in the room in that government. Like, I can't say anyone. It's all bootlickers.
Well, and it's.
Oh,
go ahead.
Well, actually, I take that back. There was some of his sycophants, Pam Bondi and Christine Noem. I think they did, given how slavish they were, like how they really, not just how they portrayed themselves publicly, but I feel like the way they acted within, like in private too, and in their government, that they really acted with complete obedience. And everything they did was with an aim to please President Trump. It had nothing to do with what they think they should do,
right,
as the Attorney General or the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. So because of that, I mean, they fired Christine Noem. Now there's a new Secretary of DHS. I'm forgetting his name. I don't know why. It's a weird one, but it's a Republican senator from Oklahoma. And I mean, I think he almost started a fight with like the union leader in I don't know if you've seen that video.
No.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders had to like break it up. I think the Teamsters union president, the Senator Mark Mullins Wayne, that's his name, Senator Mark Mullins Wayne. He invited him to like a fight in a Senate hearing.
That's great. Yeah,
But I still think, given that he was a senator, I feel like even if they could put some kind of personal integrity, like I'm going to do the job and make America safe. I'm not just going to do it. And I think a sign of that is, look, if you look in recently, Stephen Miller, the person who's had been effectively running DHS, specifically ICE, and anything to do with immigration, was Stephen Miller, the senior advisor to President Trump. And he's just been radio silent ever since the murder of 2 U.S. citizens in Minnesota. Am I right to say murder? Oh, one of them, definitely.
I would say murder, yeah. Certainly for Alex Bray.
Alleged, or, I mean, I don't think there's even been an investigation, so I would say suspected homicides. That's the correct legal term, I think. Because there's no investigation. That's just what they say. But so I think that I wouldn't call it progress. I think it's maybe just, instead of the artery being like bleeding out to death, it's like a temporary Band-Aid. Like they're not letting the flow go as much, because if they were going to continue at the rate that they were doing before the Minnesota shootings, I think they would have had a full-on revolt from U.S. citizens too, because Minnesota's not, what happened in Minnesota, I don't know, we're switching way back, but I think it applies to a lot of places. It's not just because it's democratic, but a lot of U.S. citizens do not appreciate when there's like the border, like these SWAT teams roaming the streets, and because they were doing things so crazy, like going to gas stations and asking like a black or brown person, random, where's your ID documents? Do you think if I was at a gas station in Minnesota, dressed up all nice like a lawyer, do you think Border Patrol would come up to me, or ICE would come up to me and ask me for my papers? No.
They shouldn't be coming up to anybody.
It's clearly like a Nazi, like they were doing things like Nazis, like inflicting terror. Because not talking about immigration, I'm talking about, because there were a lot of U.S. citizens caught up in it.
Oh yeah, for sure, of course.
And not just the ones that were killed, but like random people on the street that had nothing to do with anything, and they're U.S. citizens. And you have these SWAT teams like aggressively interrogating you. Show me your papers. Show me your papers. That was a Nazi thing, right? Show me your papers. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like a bellwether where Trump was like, because that kind of cuts against. I know you think that he has dementia, but I think he might have some cognitive decline. But I still think he's smart enough to make a sharp about face. He saw that Minnesota was not good for him, like it could result in like a real resistance. No, like even like if you look at Senator Tom Tillis, I think there were a lot of people, Republicans, who are traditionally defenders of Trump. Those people, like, or even Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, they took notice, and they kind of, there's some people kind of on the borderline that just overwhelmingly generally defend Trump. I think that's more with respect to the Senate, because Mike Johnson, he's almost like he's a person, I feel like he's on the payroll or something.
Might be.
But like with the Senate, they do, even the Republican senator, like Senator John Thune, the Senate leader, they haven't obeyed to all of Trump's requests, for example, to get rid of the filibuster. And I can't think of specific examples, but they've very lightly, generally pushed back at times. Oh, and then you have the Epstein. The Congress released all the things relating to Epstein too. So there is some life. And I think that Trump is smart enough to realize that he can't cross certain lines. Of course, he always tests it first, but that's how he is now. And if he is even saying he doesn't have dementia, but he has cognitive decline, right? Who's to say that next time he's going to listen to anyone? He's going to say, bored. I don't give a fuck if the people rise up. I'll just put them in jail. I mean, that's possible too. But I think if I like I said before, I almost welcome that he pushes too far, like that he does something really bad, and that the system gets tested, is it gonna remove him, eliminate the threat, or is it gonna collapse?
Well, my only fear with that, because I would be on board with you, but I feel like he has already done things that are absolutely unexcusable, unexplainable, on whatever, and nothing has happened.
Well, it's because a lot of those things he's done aligns with them, like Lindsey Graham's.
Right, but but people still defend them. I mean, even you were talking today about the the end of preliminary injunctions. Like, sure, you
the
can
Supreme Court.
Like, sure, you can sit here right now and say, well, I agree with Donald Trump on this issue, so ending to preliminary injunctions is a great thing because it's stupid that this situation. Well, what about the next situation? What about when Donald Trump isn't the president anymore and the next president or the next administration has something going on that people would benefit from the same system? Like I feel like it's just so short-sighted to say, hey,
people should be on the streets demanding that the Senate, the Supreme Court be impeached. I mean, think about it. The end of universal injunction sounds
universal. There you go. I kept saying preliminary.
Yeah, well, preliminary is, but the end of universal injunction seems like a legalese thing, but it's a huge deal. So, for example, just for people to I'm an attorney.
Yeah, please.
And I have personally benefited and also been harmed by universal injunctions as a practicing immigration lawyer. Give you one example. President Obama announced this. He wanted to implement this thing called deferred action for parents of U.S. citizens. And it was a huge program. He was going to basically take millions of undocumented immigrants and give them work permits. It was a bit potentially questionably constitutionally, it was potentially unconstitutional. Like, he went beyond his authority, his discretionary authority, to circumvent the U.S. immigration law, which says remove illegal immigrants, right? So the conservative state of Texas, the conservative states, they filed a lawsuit in Texas with the most conservative U.S. District Court judge in Texas, right? And he did an injunction, and that injunction applied across the United States, even though it was just in Texas.
Right.
So that ended. That would have been a huge boon for me as an immigration lawyer. But now, if the law was as it was then, there would have been millions of people instantly given work permits. But flip it on another example. Let's say, with respect to, the government announces that anyone with at least 50% Italian heritage is going to be imprisoned for 6 months because they have associations with terrorism. I don't know, some random horrible thing.
Obviously.
Some obviously illegal thing that affects people across the United States. That it violates the constitutional rights of U.S. citizens in every state. Now, if Joe in California files a lawsuit in court and the court says, this is so illegal, this is the government's kidnapping you, it's illegal. No, that doesn't apply. The government can continue to illegally implement that policy, that illegal policy, in districts outside of that, California, until somebody is able to successfully put together a class action lawsuit, which is never a guarantee. Class action lawsuit is much more complicated. It requires that you have meet like certain requirements in order for it. Takes a lot more time. So it gives the government at least weeks more than it would normally to just violate the law. So right now, if a U.S. president wants to do something that they know is illegal, they can do it as long as they want, until somebody's successful in filing a class action lawsuit and that they get a preliminary injunction. So it's for illegality.
So just to explain it in like a very simple way, okay, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. So the way that it would work for anybody who doesn't understand, right? If the federal government is committing some kind of an illegal action countrywide, Joe, in your example, sues in California. Because one of the major arguments I've heard against this is basically, well, why should a judge that's in California be able to control what's happening all over the country? But I think what a lot of people don't understand, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to try to explain this to the best of my knowledge, is basically he sues and the judge issues the universal injunction, which is basically like, hey, there's enough evidence here to suggest that something illegal is happening. So until this can go to the greater or go through the entire court system and the legality of it can be fully decided, this action needs to stop right now before it causes additional harm. Is that
Correct.
So theoretically, were it to go to court and it was found that, hey, actually DHS didn't and ICE didn't do anything wrong, then the injunction would then be lifted and the actions that they were doing would continue. Correct?
Yeah, and correct.
Yeah, so like the argument basically that, because that, like I said, that's one of the arguments that I heard was like, well, why should a court judge that's just in some backwater thing be able to control the entire country? That doesn't make any sense. But that's not actually what's happening. Like that's a misunderstanding of the way the procedure actually works.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I would, even for people that aren't lawyers, I mean, sometimes Supreme Court decisions or court decisions in general can be daunting. There's a lot of legalese, a lot of things maybe people don't understand. But in this case, the end of universal injunctions, I think it's important to keep in mind what case this came up on. This was the lawsuit. There were maybe like dozens of individual lawsuits against Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. And every jurisdiction court that had heard the case and all across the country said that this was clearly unconstitutional and illegal. So the government appealed to this, eventually went to the Supreme Court and they said, look, we're not appealing the merits. We don't want you to decide right now whether it's the 14th Amendment entitles anyone born here to U.S. citizenship. No, we just want you to decide to end this policy of universal injunctions. And if you read the dissent, Sotomayor, she was I can't believe some of the things I read in these dissents, and I think it's important to actually read what they say, because that notion that I just explained was specifically raised by the dissent. So let's see something layperson.
Well, that ties back to, I know you've told me before, which I didn't know. I never really looked into it, but that the Supreme Court justices don't have to say anything about their decision, which I think is
right. Yeah,
wild.
that's another thing. But the thing, yes, so Sotomayor, what she literally said in the interim before it gets to the Supreme Court, the government, this is what, in a nutshell, what this means, the end of universal injunctions, especially when it's about illegal policies that affect the rights of U.S. citizens. In the interim, the government may feel free to execute illegal policies against non-parties to individual lawsuits,
right.
and cause immeasurable harm that this court may never be able to remedy. And that was just that there's been other cases that you just raised about where the United States government is usually, there's an appellate process, right? There's the U.S. District Court, then you have to appeal to the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, and then you appeal to the Supreme Court. And it's very rare that the Supreme Court actually ever agrees to hear a case once there's been a decision from the Circuit Court of Appeals. So what's happened under this Trump administration is that they've countless occasions, while the case is still pending, the Trump administration has requested emergency to overturn both Circuit Court of Appeals and U.S. District Court of Appeals, overturn the rulings against them. For example, being able to racially profile people for immigration enforcement. So they've, in many, like that case regarding what was happening in Los Angeles, the facts of that case are pretty insane. The actual plaintiff was a U.S. citizen who was I think they raided his workplace. They roughed him up and detained him for God knows how much time. And the challenge was basically the U.S. government was asking the Supreme Court, like, look, we can use race and this and ability to speak English as a basis. And the U.S. District Court and the Court of Appeals said, with very lengthy decisions detailing why this is unconstitutional, they ruled against the Trump administration. You can't do this. You can't just roam the streets. Basically, what they did in Minnesota, those courts in California were the first ones to experience what happened in Minnesota, and they're like, you can't do this. This is illegal, right? And then the Supreme Court overturned the District Court and the Court of Appeals, and they didn't even bother to give the United States public a written decision explaining why. They didn't even. The case is still going on. Like, I think the standard for overturning I think it was a TRO, temporary restraining order, is that there has to be serious harm, like potential irreparable harm to the U.S. government. And like their claimed irreparable harm was that they wouldn't be able to enforce immigration law, and the public would be less safe because they're going after criminal immigrants. And the Supreme Court, basically, there's no other way that they could have rationally overturned it unless they thought that, I want to see these illegals deported. Maybe it's unconstitutional, but I don't feel like really thinking about it. Let's just do that. We have the power. We're going to do it. And we're not even going to write a decision. The dissent wrote a decision, a lengthy decision. They were outraged. Like, look, you can't. This is going to allow you, and this is just going to allow DHS to rove the streets. Like, what do you think? A average border patrol or ICE agent, the Supreme Court says you can use race and ability to speak English as one of several, and where they work. Like, so we can go to the supposed basis for that raid was that they targeted a construction company or some blue collar type of where there's traditionally a lot of immigrants or supposedly undocumented immigrants working there. And so you can use these things combined, but the obvious meaning to that is if you can use race, I mean, that should be no.
Yeah, to stop somebody. Yeah, I mean,
the ability to speak English is very unreliable as well. Or an accent, or you got, there has to be strict guardrails. We shouldn't have and I don't think this was in the backyard of John Kavanaugh, Samuel Alito, and but Kavanaugh was the only one that bothered to write anything written decision, but it was just all over the place. But I think at their heart, a lot of these conservatives, they don't care about because of who the people being harmed are. I think it's like almost a subconscious level of racism. Like, who cares? Because I'm not talking about the actual undocumented immigrants, but what they're basically signing off on, and that's I'm going to the merits, but they should have at least written a reasoned decision, right?
Right.
That should be the law.
It should. I agree.
So it's almost like, because it's like a contagion, because you can't say that the any of the Supreme Court justices are similar to Trump in personality and recklessness, right? But definitely lack courage. Write the decision. Write a decision. Like we have a right. I'm an American citizen. You're a U.S. citizen. We have a right to an explanation if you're going to make a decision that's so impactful. You can't, or if especially if it's changing, it's going against the current of the judicial process. It's supposed to be, it's an appellate, it's called an appeal, right? You're supposed to fully litigate, which means the facts were already barely developed. And that is a real, I mean, the justices are responsible for that. And I think when they're effectively out of a job, if the U.S. government doesn't recover, because I think there's a chance that it won't recover. I think it's still small. But this is very unreliable given how volatile the president is. But they've ceded so much of their own power. Like, why? This is the general gist of it. Like, they really have given the executive much more power in general, not just to Trump, but to any executive that follows. So they're basically undermining their own jobs. Based on what? I don't know. Because I mean, with respect to, they've been pretty bad on immigration. Like, and I feel like it's like, why, even with the I think the birthright citizenship case, it's too, they can't, there's no way around this text of the Constitution. To do otherwise would be like really active. It's like a wild interpretation, like subject to the jurisdiction thereof. But like in reality, as an immigration, like there's nothing legal. Like there's so many illegal things. Like I think you're talking about tens of thousands of people that they've illegally detained, and U.S. district courts have ordered them to be released. You look at the death of, basically they destroyed the right to apply for asylum. They've detained countless U.S. citizens, killed 2 U.S. citizens, and at the end of the day, is the Supreme Court doesn't care enough about other, like, Americans in the minority or anything. Like, they're in their own bubble. Like, why would you give the whole government was co-equal branches, right?
Should be.
I mean, yeah, that's the whole thing of the universal injunction. Oh yeah, one U.S. district court shouldn't, but it's a constitution. How else do you make sure that the government obeys the U.S. Constitution? It's called the Bill of Rights, right? The Bill of Rights. So basically, the Bill of Rights only apply to you. The government can illegally do anything to you. The federal government can do anything illegal to you, even if another judge somewhere else, a federal judge, already said this is clearly illegal. We're going to do it anyway. So it's as a U.S. citizen, I'm angry that this is not like they have too much power. It's like they're just deciding everyone's fate because it's based on these arcane. And I'm not talking about the merits of anything. I'm talking about the universal injunctions and the failure to write written decisions too. So, where do you go? I mean, there's so many things that need to change to like correct the course, so to speak.
Well, that's, you know, I feel like we're at the point where it's just like nothing matters anymore. Like nobody actually cares about the rule of law. You know, like you could even look at the example of like, look at Iran, right? The president is not supposed to be able to wage war without Congress.
Yeah, that's been going on for a while.
But yet, they just, well, we're not technically at war. We're just, what are you doing? Like, that's what you're doing is actions of war. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, even we were attacked in World War II, and yet we still declared war officially. And what, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like just nobody cares. Nobody cares anymore. And like, that's the thing is Donald Trump is like, he does whatever he wants to do. And then people are like, hey, I feel like you can't do that. And then the answer from like the Republican Party is kind of just like, well, we just did, so I guess we can. And that's it. And it just, that's just the end of it. Like it never goes beyond that. You know what I mean? Even look at the, this thing, not to go back to Epstein. I feel like we always talk about Epstein, but I feel like it is important.
We've covered him really that much, but
the whole thing with releasing the Epstein files, right? And then after, when they didn't release all of the files and they were challenged on it, I don't know if it was Bondi or who said it, but essentially when they or what was in the, but it was like they filed something with the court and they were like, well, in the law that mandated that we release the files, there was no penalty for not releasing the files. So therefore, we don't have to release the files. There's no penalty. And then it just kind of went away. And it's like, I don't understand.
They're dragging you to sue them. Like, it's like, but the thing people don't understand, like suing, like lawsuits in federal court, like not anyone can do that. Like, I think that's something a lot of people don't understand. A lot of the things that we benefit from, like the rights, come from other people that have sued, but it requires a huge amount of resources. I'll tell you, to hire a private lawyer to file a lawsuit against the U.S. government, depending on it, it's like anywhere is easily $5 That's just it's like the simplest ones, like 5,000. If it's a really complicated case, you're talking lots of money. It's hard to do, and I think people need to wake up. I think that's one thing that could, because if people woke up, I think there's a collective like malaise, especially with social media. I think people are asleep. Um, what are the ways? I think something to ponder for the next episode. What are ways that can wake people up? Maybe like putting them in the shoes of a parent who, one of the parents of the Iranian schoolgirls that were killed. You know, the children of the U.S. parents or the wives of U.S. citizen or U.S. active duty military members who are getting deported, and that's something that's changed with this government. They don't care about the immediate family, like the parents and those spouses of active duty members if they're undocumented. For a decade, or at least a decade prior to this, the U.S. government has not tried to deport or enforce the immigration laws against them. And now that is, there's no prohibition on that, and they're targeting everyone. So it's like, go in the shoes of somebody that's about to be deployed to a war zone, maybe a pilot, somebody doing bombing runs on Iran.
And now you also have to have the stress of your wife is getting deported. Yeah,
or your
exactly.
Parent, your father is going to get detained. How does that make them feel? How does that actually that could it has the whole point of not doing that is not just like a moral one. It's a practical one because you want your armed forces to be as motivated and optimal as possible. And if you have tens of thousands of, I think it's in the tens of thousands of active duty members who have a spouse or parents who are undocumented, that's concretely and substantially affects like morale, no?
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
So wake people up. It's just so hard because I think the media has some responsibility. I mean, he just dominates the airwaves so much. Maybe we should take a cue from that and do an episode that's completely unrelated to Trump and the government. But I think it's not really, for example, like the New York Times, CNN, I don't even know if they have a choice because there's just so much. It's an information war too. It's like there's just so much chaos in the media. Like why there's so many things not being covered that should be being covered. And I think that's part of it's intentional, but part of it because he's a narcissistic. He's it's all about him dominating the airwaves. So I think it's not good when he has bad press though.
I think part of the problem is just always something going on. You know, when you were talking about, I guess we should wrap up soon, but even when you were talking before about the bombings and stuff, then I like what popped into my head was like, oh, what about when he was missiling the boats that were coming to the
this is fucking crazy.
This is another thing that just completely disappeared. Like just nobody talks about it. It's just vanished. It's just gone.
And they killed like 100 people, like fishermen. Like we don't even know who. There's never any evidence of who they were. It's like, and there was such a like, even that was outrageous, and there was such a tepid response from so many in the Republican Party. They're like, I don't know. They should know who it is. I mean, Rand Paul, some people were like, what the fuck is going on? You can't just bomb boats in the Caribbean. They're drug traffickers. Interdict them. That's probably one of the biggest examples of how easily that was forgotten, right? Shouldn't there be like a criminal investigation? I feel like they committed mass murder in the Caribbean.
Well, there should at least be something. Like if you wanted to tell me, hey, they were drug dealers, I don't care. Okay.
Their justification was insane, though.
How do you know?
Can't just kill drug traffickers,
But how do you even know how? We were never provided anything to say that they were actually drug traffickers. Like, if you told me they were 100% drug traffickers, here's the proof. They were bringing this in. We have these photographs. We have this intel. Blah, 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 blah. I still would disagree with it, but I could at least understand somebody agreeing with it. You know what I mean? But like we never got that. It was just trust me, bro.
That's the thing, though. That's a fallacy. You can't get that. There's a reason why people like when somebody is caught trafficking drugs in the United States, There's the government is inside the borders of the United States. The government can't just kill them. And there's a truck down the highway. See, the border patrol already knows there's cocaine because they did an X-ray, so they let them go. We're just gonna bomb the truck in the middle of the United States. That's what it is.
Yeah, basically.
They're just getting away with it because it's outside of like a national jurisdiction for prosecution. There has to be, it's called due process, I think. Like that's why you can't just kill somebody. You have to have evidence. And from from intelligence sources, like there's a reason like you can't get convicted of a crime based on intelligence briefings from the FBI. There has to be actual evidence, and it's effectively the same as executing charge, conviction, execution in one. And we'll end on this. This is a good. I completely forgot about this. Yep. I never really talked about it. But when I saw it, I was like, "What?" I knew it was totally fucked, and I just didn't even really fully get into how fucked up it is. But their justification at the time, they said, well, they are an imminent threat because they're bringing deadly drugs into the United States that kill American citizens, which is just so bullshit. These are cocaine traffickers. These weren't fentanyl traffickers. Anyway, cocaine's bad, right? I get it. But they're such bald-faced liars. That wasn't a real excuse. They just wanted to expand their power and be able to execute people, and that was the pretext.
Yep.
And the fact that Americans aren't really, that should be like that on its own. I feel like somebody that has like that's a red line that you can't get by. You can't just murder people.
Well, especially if you knew where the boat was and you were following it on satellite. Why not just?
There's a double tap. There's a double. Oh, actually, the double tap, right? Michael Caine defended that. Like, that's another thing. That's not just Trump. Like, what about people like General Caine? Like, I feel like they know, and they should have known better that they couldn't do that.
They should, but they
expose themselves to liability.
They feel emboldened currently. They feel like they could do whatever they want, and it seems
so the people that were involved in those killings could be held criminally liable. Isn't it obviously illegal?
To me, it is. But who knows? I don't know. I don't even know what's illegal anymore because it seems like nothing.
Under the rules of law, under the rules of war, I mean, the U.S. There's specific laws, rules of engagement.
There are. That you're supposed to follow. Yeah, of course.
I guess they could try to say that the rules that they were, I don't know the specific rules, but clearly one of the rules is you can't just kill civilians, right?
Yes.
And these people were civilians, but now the legal justification put on top of it by the political apparatus, by Trump, is that these are combatants in war because they're drug trafficking. So I think, no, I think that they should be held criminally liable because I don't see even like a regular officer or a pilot or something like it beggars belief that you could say that these people are maybe the lower people that executed, they could get out, but the generals and the high level people, like the people in JAG, is there any way that you could see legitimately that one could say that these are enemy combatants?
In my personal opinion, no.
They don't have guns. They don't.
They're also not part of a military. Like even if they did have guns, like does that mean that members of the U.S. Armed Forces could just like go shooting gang members in the street? Because if they have a gun, that doesn't make any sense.
Somebody has to let. So maybe what should be done? Something like that. Something with Iran. Iran is a foreign state, right? But I feel like people put heat on him. Like, where do generals? They're subject to prosecution by the Department of Justice.
Well, I would imagine they would still be under the UCMJ, right? The Uniform Code of Military Justice. So it would be like under. I actually don't know. Once you get that high up, I'm not sure because I think at that point you're kind of only.
Well, I mean, imagine this scenario. What if like the International Court, what's it called? The Hague. I know it's based in The Hague. If they issued an indictment against General Caine for whatever killing civilians in Iran like recklessly, because there's potential for that too. And then with what happened in the Caribbean, someone like General Kane sees that he might face personal consequences, maybe that could have an impact. Because
maybe
never really thought about it.
But yeah, that's good. I think that's a big part of it. Is just things happen so fast that you just can't. People's brains can't even wrap around. Like by the time you process one crazy event, there have already been 5 more, and you can't ever settle on anything. You know, I think that's a big part of the problem. But
yeah. Anyway, well, plenty to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. That's pretty
All
good.
right, I'll talk to you.
Yeah, take it easy.